The smoke of Satan. Hello, my name is Joseph Solo Jr. And this is the smoke of Satan. So we're talking about something that Pope St. Paul VI referred to when he said, we would say that through some mysterious crack, no, it's not mysterious, through some crack, the smoke of Satan has entered the Church of God. I believe that this has been identified by Pope Pius X in his Encyclical Pascendi Dominici Gregis, which was written before this, back in the early 1900s. And he goes through the entire Modernist Heresy and shows how it's going to undermine the faith of the Church. And what happened in Vatican II was we let this, quote-unquote, smoke of Satan into the Church, which is this Modernist heresy, in my opinion. So let's talk about today's topic, which is the origin of dogma. Now, I'm going to warn you. This is really heretical. Don't think that this has any value at all. I just want you to see it so you understand it. Okay? So again, we want to talk a little bit about traditional theology, and we have this twofold sources of knowledge. We have our senses and our reason. We can reason that there is a God, but God has to reveal himself so we know him. So we have divine revelation as this alternate track to knowledge. Okay? And we have a supernatural end, and we have a natural end. The Nouvelle Theologie, they get rid of this whole order of grace. Divine revelation is verboten. And they think that everything you can know by senses and reason, and grace is the perfection of reason, so there's no need for anything external. And this leads everybody pointed to a supernatural end. Okay? And that's how they think it works. Now, this elimination of the divine revelation has very serious implications, and we're going to see it and where they think dogma comes from. So, the origin of dogma. Basically, here's how it works, okay? People experience things with their senses, and they get ideas about faith, right? So they get some primitive idea. They get mental pictures, and these are turned into some statement of faith, right? Then the man will ponder that faith and elaborate on it and produce secondary propositions based on this, primitive inspiration, and then and the thoughts that, keep elaborating, keep thinking about it, right? And then you think about it enough that, it's such a great idea that it's we think it's now going to be dogma, so we bring it to the magisterium of the church, who puts their stamp on it and says, this is now dogma. Now, this is not, sorry, I thought that was wrong. This is not what the church believes, how dogma comes about. We believe in truth, right? We believe the truth. We believe in divine revelation. We believe in that there is an absolute truth that we can know. And it's not just something that we conjure up in our mind and we keep pondering until we get it right? Okay? This is the idea that these formulas, they must be living and adapted to faith, which, it's kind of changing because faith is a sentiment. And the believer gives an account of his faith to himself. Okay? This is how we get to dogmas. And they talk about symbols of faith and the instruments of the believer. Okay, so the dogma ends up being an instrument to serve the believer. Okay, now, evolution's a big thing for these theologians, right? Because it comes from this idea of evolution in the sciences. I mean, science is all gung-ho that everything evolves from everything else, and that's how you explain everything. So, yeah, the truth evolves. There's no absolute truth. These symbols are images of truth adapted to the religious sentiment. The instruments are vehicles of truth adapted to religious sentiment. Okay? So the dogma is subject to change. We have intrinsic evolution of dogma. Okay? That's what they call this. To be really religious and not merely theological speculations, these ought to be living and to live the life of the religious sentiment. This is kind of fuzzy language now. We're getting into kind of a new age kind of thing here. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but this is the way these people talk, okay? It is necessary that the primitive formula be accepted and sanctioned by the heart. Now, you remember what Jesus kind of said about what comes out of the heart of a man, right? So, and similarly, the subsequent work from which spring the secondary formulas must proceed under the guidance of the heart. So we have a lot of business of the heart. In the person's heart, we figure this stuff out. Now, in traditional kind of theology, we're thinking of divine revelation. We're thinking of actions of the Holy Spirit working on the person, revealing the truth of God to people. That's not how they're saying it works, right? Okay. Hence it comes that these formulas to be living should be and should remain adapted to the faith and to him who believes. Okay? Modernists disdain traditional dogma of the church. They believe they should be able to change it. Okay? So this is how they think dogma comes about and evolves. And Pius X doesn't like it. Okay? So here's what Pius X says about it. And so they audaciously charge the church both with taking the wrong road from inability to distinguish the religious and moral sense of formulas from their surface meaning, and with clinging tenaciously and vainly to meaningless formulas, whilst religion is allowed to go to ruin. Okay, so let's take some of the floweriness out of this quote, because I don't even know if I have it written right here. What he's saying is that they blame the church for holding to traditions and holding to dogmas and saying you're only getting the surface meaning of that dogma. You're not really understanding its full meaning. You know, they're so smart they can see that, you know, the church is wrong. Basically, that's what they're saying. Okay, let's go on. Here's something else he says. Blind that they are, and leaders of the blind, inflated with a boastful science, they have reached that pitch of folly where they pervert the eternal concept of truth and the true nature of the religious sentiment. With that new system of theirs, they are seen to be under the sway of a blind and unchecked passion for novelty, thinking not at all of finding some solid foundation of truth, but despising the holy and apostolic traditions, they embrace other vain, futile, uncertain doctrines condemned by the church, on which, in the height of their vanity, they think they can rest and maintain truth itself. Okay. He's calling them blind. He's saying they don't want to believe the truth of the church. They don't, accept it. They're vain. They are just, they love novelty. They love the change. They love the newness of it. So, that's a problem. That's not Catholic, right? We have a deposit of faith that has been handed down to us, and we protect that deposit of faith. There's no new innovations on it, right? There can be differences and changes in discipline and that kind of thing, but there can't be this change in dogma, right? Again, my name is Joseph Silva Jr. You can check out my novels, When the Wood is Dry, my graphic novel, Blind Prophet, my Christmas story, Merry Freaking Christmas, which comes in a naughty edition, and a standard edition. Naughty edition has bad language. You can get a clean version of When the Wood is Dry if you get for the Catholic. It's called the Catholic edition. Okay? Thank you very much. We will see you in our next video, which will be the modernist as believer. This is as opposed to the theologian or philosopher. So now we're getting down to me and you. How the modernist sees us as the faithful. Thank you very much.